Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to watch this video. I'm going to talk about what my favorite book ever is. I'm so tired right now. I just got back from Florida like a week ago, and I have kind of been running around and hanging out with my friends since then. I have not been sleeping, so that's why I look like this. Okay, anyway, thanks for tuning in to watch this video about me and my favorite book and why I like it. Okay, bye. If you're here for this video, I'm flattered. I'm flattered that you care about what I think. So today we're here to talk about what my favorite book is ever. I did a video a while back, I guess 6 months ago now, talking about what some of my favorite books were. I went through all of my favorite books because I got an embosser for myself and I was going through all of my books and embossing them. And I only embossed the ones that I really liked, and the ones that I especially liked, I put a gold sticker on. So I went through all of my gold sticker books in that last video, but there is one book in particular that I would say is my absolute favorite out of every single book I've ever read. I typically read like 25 to almost 50 books a year, and I've been reading regularly since I was about 21. And before that, I actually really didn't like to read at all. Sometimes I would get books from school that I kind of didn't mind, but there was never really a book that I picked up that I really, really, really liked. Except I will say there was one series by Karen Miller called Empress, which I don't have anymore. But that was my favorite book series in high school. I haven't read a Karen Miller book in a long time, so I don't know how it holds up to what I like now. But Empress by Karen Miller was really good when I was in high school. I will say it has some really crazy themes in it that are not enjoyable for most people to read. So if you're not super into horrible, evil things, then you probably won't like that book. Not to say I'm into horrible, evil things, because I'm not. I swear, guys. But the character development was worth it for me. I got a latte machine for my birthday. Oh my god, it's really changing my life. That is just divine. It's so good. Every time I make myself a latte, I feel like a god. I'm like, I can do anything. If I can do this, I can do anything. I wonder if you can guess what my favorite book is. Actually, let's play a game. Out of all of the books that I've ever read, I feel like there are themes in books that I really enjoy. Specifically, I really enjoy people surviving or homesteading. I typically like books that are at least like set 50 to 100 years in the past or longer. I definitely like books about Alaska for some reason, specifically. Every book I've ever read about Alaska just hits me really hard. I definitely like books that are a little whimsical. I like books that are like kind of giving magical realism, and I love folklore. So if you take all of those things into consideration, you might be able to figure out what my favorite book is if you're very well versed in novels and folklore and popular authors. At least I think she's kind of popular. I've heard people talk about her, but I haven't heard people talk about her a lot. So it is written by a female author. So if you haven't guessed yet, wrap it up because I'm about to show you what my favorite book is. My favorite book is The Snow Child. The author of this book, Eowyn Ivey, was raised in Alaska and continues to live there with her husband and two daughters. She worked for nearly 10 years as a reporter at the Frontiersman newspaper, where she won several awards. She is now a bookseller at an independent bookstore in Alaska. That is just so cute. So to give you a little overview about what this book is about before I get into the whole story of it, is there's this older couple that's kind of drifting apart that lives in Alaska in the 1920s. And they just recently moved there. And they're homesteading, and they're not very good at it because there's only one of them who can really work the farm, and that's Jack. And Mabel has never done work like that before. And she takes housekeeping very seriously because she wants to keep Jack happy. But Jack kind of wants her to help him. So there's kind of this like rift that forms between them, and they never really talk about it. So there's no real way for them to bridge the gap that's forming between them. So there's this one night where Jack and Mabel go out into their front yard, and they are throwing snowballs at each other and laughing and realizing like they've kind of been taking themselves too seriously, and they're having a lot of fun, and they build a snow girl together, and they go to bed. There's a little hanky panky, and the next morning when they wake up, the snow child's gone. And there's tracks that lead from the snow child that they built that is no longer there into the woods. The reason why this is my favorite book is partially because I absolutely love Alaska and I love books about surviving and homesteading and all of that. But it's also very whimsical. It's very whimsical, it's very serious, but it's kind of, it makes you think a lot. It makes you think a lot about your own life and your own life choices. It's like, it's sad. It's a sad book, but it's kind of like wrapped in this film of like hope, and it feels like you can like touch it. And the characters are so well developed that you really get attached to them. It is stunningly beautifully written. It's very descriptive, and it's also easy to read. If you really liked this book, you could read it in 2 days or a day. It's like approximately 385 pages of just wonder and beauty. There's a lot of yearning and like longing in this book. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of pain. This book is really meaningful. It really says a lot of things. It says a lot of things about gender roles, love, different types of relationships. Loving somebody even if you don't understand them, I think, is one of the biggest themes in this book, and kind of like making space for someone else's needs, putting people before yourself. There's a lot of selflessness happening in this book, which is nice to see. And it takes place in beautiful Alaska, and it's just an awesome read. I would highly recommend reading this towards the end of fall or early winter. It's not a Christmas book, but it is a winter book. And like I said, I read it every year. I absolutely highly recommend this book. It is my favorite book ever. And if you pick it up and you read it, you should let me know. At this point, I'm going to get into talking about the entire storyline. So if you want to hear that summary, go ahead and keep watching. If you want to pick up this book yourself and you don't want any more spoilers or any spoilers at all, I would go ahead and buy this and then come back to this video if you want to hear me talk about it. But the second half of this video is going to be me talking about the actual storyline. So hope you guys pick this up. And if not, let's get into the rest of the video. So the main character's name in this book is Mabel, and her partner's name is Jack. So Mabel and Jack moved to Alaska at like 50, which is kind of crazy for the 1920s. And they start homesteading, and they're like isolated. They're struggling to maintain the farm that they started because they're older. They don't really have like a ton of money, and they're kind of like hanging on by a thread, and they're kind of drifting apart at some point. They're not really feeling super into each other anymore. But there's one night where Mabel leaves the house for like one of the first times. She doesn't really go out very much because she feels like she should be taking care of the home, and she was getting depressed. And Jack was getting frustrated because he was the only one working on the farm. And he would come in and he would be tired and they wouldn't really talk. And she was getting upset because she was basically alone all day, and so was he, and they never really got to connect. One day Mabel goes outside at night with Jack, and it's snowing. It's the first time I think it's snowed since they moved in to their log cabin in Alaska. And oh my god. Hello? Okay. Not being held hostage anymore. Don't know what that was. It's the first time it snowed at their cabin in Alaska. They're outside. It's nighttime. They're like throwing snowballs at each other and being very playful, and it's kind of like starting to rekindle their relationship, and they're realizing they've been taking themselves too seriously. Build a snow girl. Mabel puts her scarf and her gloves on it. I think Jack like stains her lips pink with berries, and it's all very cute. They make a snow baby together. And they admire it for a while, and they go inside, and I think they do something romantic that night. And then the next morning they go out and look at their front yard, and the snow child is just gone. And they're like, how did this happen? Because it definitely didn't melt. Like, it's unlikely that something came and tipped it over. But there's tracks that lead from where the snow child was into the woods. And they are like a little disturbed by this, but they don't really think that much of it. And they kind of go about their lives. And then Jack keeps seeing like glimpses of a red fox in the woods. And he's worried that the red fox is going to come eat their chickens. They can't really afford to lose any of their chickens. So Jack is kind of thinking like, I have to kill this red fox. Mabel really doesn't want him to do that. And one day, Jack sees the red fox, and there's a girl walking around with the red fox. And he's alarmed because why is there a girl this far off in the woods by herself? Their cabin is like very far out of the way. Their closest neighbor is very far away. I don't remember exactly how far, but like very far away. So he's like, oh my God, somebody's kid must be missing. Like, what's going on? Why is this child here? So he goes into the woods after the girl, and he realizes while he's going after her that she is very familiar with the woods, like more so than he. And she's like very good at navigating the landscape, and he loses her very quickly. And as time goes on, he sees the girl more and more, and he starts leaving her little gifts like dolls and things. And yeah, I think he goes out and he finds dolls or something. He like specifically goes out to get her things. And it's kind of frivolous because they're not really making any money. So he's like not even really fully understanding why he feels the need to spend money on frivolous things like children's toys, because they don't even really have children, right? But he's leaving little gifts for her, and she comes and takes them. And one day, I think at night, she just shows up and they invite her in. And Mabel is just like absolutely overjoyed that there's a little girl in the house. She kind of always wanted children. I don't think she was capable of having them. So it really warmed her heart to have this child in the house. And the kid starts coming by more and more. But there's things that are a little off about her. Like she won't stay overnight. She's very sensitive to heat, to the point where when the girl comes over, they have to open all the windows and the doors because otherwise she'll melt. Even though she looks like a totally normal girl. Normal looking, I guess, except a little ethereal, if you will. And they start to take care of her, but they're also perplexed by her behavior. It doesn't really make sense. But when it stops snowing and the seasons start changing, she shows up less and less, and then not at all. And they're very concerned. They don't really understand why this is happening. They go looking for her, in fact, and there's kind of like this weird backstory about her that starts to develop, and you don't really know if it's true kind of the whole time, where Jack goes up into the woods after her and finds her and she's living up in the mountains further where it's colder. And he finds this like little hovel, like a little cave or something that she's inhabiting. And he sees her like trapping animals and hunting. She tells Jack that she's lived here basically her whole life, and that her father her father died from drinking too much, and now she lives in there alone. But it's kind of like you never really learn whether or not this was a fabrication so that she wouldn't be found out, because she's clearly a fairy. She was a fairy. She was a fairy. So Jack and Mabel make friends with their neighbors, and their neighbors have 2 or 3 sons. And one of their sons likes to go out and hunt and trap and provide for the family. And he's like very good at it. And one day he stumbles upon Fiona in the woods. And I think at this point she's like maybe 14, 15 years old. And so is he. And he becomes like so infatuated and enamored with her that he like doesn't know what to do. He like goes out into the woods and watches her like every chance he gets. He like constantly hopes that he's going to run into her. And then one day he sees her at Jack and Mabel's house. And he's like kind of surprised by this, because I think Jack and Mabel have not really been forthcoming about this information about the kid that shows up to their house every winter. So he winds up being very surprised by this. So they wind up falling in love, but obviously there's a problem here, because she is very free-spirited, and we don't even know if she's like real. Like she's real, but she's kind of not real. She has to leave every summer to go into the mountains so that she doesn't melt. So like this is kind of a real issue. And she never really explains any of this to him because she can't, or she's afraid or something. So he just kind of doesn't understand why she's not around sometimes. And he's like worried that he's cheating on her. And basically like they go off into the woods one day together. He gets her pregnant. And Mabel and Jack are kind of devastated by this. Fiona doesn't even know what to do. She didn't even know that she could get pregnant, it seems like. And then there's kind of this conundrum where it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen now? Because how is this even going to be possible? How is any of this going to work out? So I won't tell you the whole thing. I won't spoil the whole thing for you. But basically, I mean, this this book has just got so many layers to it that it kind of just keeps you coming back for more. Like every time I read it, I like notice something new about it. I think it's like incredibly beautifully written. It's very moving. So it's kind of the perfect book for me because I can read it and not feel awful after I've read it, but it still makes me feel something very deeply. I love a book that makes me a little sad. I think that a lot of people feel that way. That is my favorite book, The Snow Child. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Hope to see you next week or the week after. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell notification. Bye.